Meghan Markle thought her brand was untouchable. With million-dollar deals, global fame, and the royal title of Duchess of Sussex, her empire was built to last. But Prince William just made a move no one saw coming. In one silent stroke, no press conference, no warning, he triggered a royal policy that stripped Meghan of the title her entire business was built on. Now, her empire is crumbling. And this wasn't personal. It was strategic. William's silent strike. On May 1st, 2024, behind the closed doors of Kensington Palace, Prince William approved a document that would ripple across the world. There were no press conferences, no social media leaks, and certainly no warnings. The decision was inked in silence and locked under protocol. This wasn't a mere administrative adjustment. It was a complete redefinition of royal identity. Only working royals would retain their HRH status, titles, and privileges. Everyone else, including Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, would be stripped of all official designations. The monarchy, once soft on blurred lines, was now sharpening its edges. The directive was not spontaneous. In January 2024, William began consultations with constitutional lawyers from within the UK and across Europe. These weren't aides or PR advisors. They were policy architects who helped draft what would become the Royal Identity Clarification Act. Its language was clear. If you don't serve the crown, you don't wear the crown. Meghan and Harry's departure in January 2020 had sparked uncertainty. But by spring 2024, William had decided to seal the gap for good. For Meghan, the fallout was instant. Her team, operating between Los Angeles and Montecito, scrambled when whispers of the policy hit in early June. Meghan's empire, worth over $120 million, had one cornerstone: the name Duchess of Sussex. From skincare lines to streaming deals, it wasn't Meghan Markle that sold. It was the title. It was royalty rebranded. And now, it was all at risk. The silent order from William had turned her identity into a ticking clock. What William understood, and Meghan underestimated, was that symbolism sells, but structure sustains. This wasn't a personal vendetta. This was legacy control. William believed that the monarchy had allowed too many half-exits. Royals who had one foot in and one foot out were confusing the public and damaging the institution. He wanted clarity. He wanted commitment. And by making this move, he forced a line to be drawn. Meghan's global identity was about to face its greatest test, not from public opinion, but from the system that once gave her power. But Meghan wasn't about to watch her empire collapse without a fight. While William moved in silence, Meghan's legal team was already preparing a bold counterstrike. Their plan? Trademark the very title William was about to erase. It was a high-stakes legal gamble that would send shockwaves through royal tradition and drag the centuries-old institution into modern courtroom warfare. What followed next was a collision of strategy, ego, and legacy, where every document signed held the weight of history. Meghan's legal gamble. By August 1st, 2024, Meghan Markle filed a formal trademark application to lock in the phrase Duchess of Sussex. Her lawyers pushed it through in the UK, the United States, and other key territories, hoping to secure rights across more than 30 categories, everything from skincare and media to clothing lines and digital services. It was a last-minute blitz designed not just to protect her empire, but to force the palace into a legal standoff. If the crown wanted to strip her, it would have to fight for it. But this wasn't just about money. Meghan's team viewed this move as existential. Her brand was rooted in the aura of royal prestige. Strip away the title, and the deals start to weaken. The pitch meetings change. The speaking fees drop. In the world of influence, branding is currency, and Meghan's most valuable currency was her royal name. Her advisors believed that by securing the trademark first, they could create legal leverage that even the palace would be reluctant to challenge. However, what they didn't know was that William had been preparing for this exact scenario since March 2024. His legal team had already amended internal royal policies to prevent any private individual, family, or not, from commercializing a crown-bestowed title. Their move was grounded in centuries-old statutes like the Royal Names Act of 1934 and reinforced under Queen Elizabeth II's modernization reforms. The trademark attempt wasn't clever. It was anticipated. It walked right into a legal wall the Crown had fortified months earlier. Within 72 hours, Meghan's UK application was flagged for historical violation. In the US, the Patent Office returned with a notice. Royal associated titles would face government scrutiny. Meghan's final power play had backfired. The trademark filing wasn't a victory. It was a trap. And just days after the application became public, William's next move hit even harder. He released a private letter signed by King Charles III, making the HRH removal law irreversible. It was game over. With her trademark blocked and HRH status revoked, Meghan's branding took a direct hit. But the blow wasn't just legal, it was reputational. Her strongest selling point had vanished, and behind the scenes, William wasn't done. What started as a response to one royal couple had now evolved into a sweeping reform of the entire monarchy. Because William's real plan wasn't to remove Meghan, it was to clean house. And the next round of reforms would affect every royal living off the crown without earning it. The Great Royal Reset. By September 2024, the full extent of Prince William's policy emerged under the name Royal Status Clarification Directive. It laid out a blunt framework. To maintain royal privileges, one must serve the monarchy. That meant 200 hours of royal duties per year, direct alignment with the crown, and reassessment every 5 years. No more passive royalty. Titles were no longer entitlements, they were jobs. And those unwilling to work? They were cut off. Meghan and Harry were only the beginning. Prince Harry, who had long held on to the HRH prefix out of respect, saw it officially removed. On media programs, books, and bios, he was now listed as the Duke of Sussex, not His Royal Highness. The changes were subtle at first. Minor headlines, podcast intros, and diplomatic briefings, but the shift was irreversible. Public perception began to adjust. In the eyes of institutions, Harry was no longer a functioning royal. But the most surprising part? The policy didn't stop with the Sussexes. It swept across the extended Windsor tree. Distant cousins, aging aristocrats, and semi-retired royals found themselves excluded from state dinners, funding programs, and even balcony appearances. If you didn't work, you didn't represent. The monarchy was being slimmed down, and for the first time in decades, it looked like a functioning institution, not a bloated relic. William's move, while controversial, was working. The public reaction was split. Some called it the harshest royal purge in modern history. Others called it necessary. Commentators noted that William was simply doing what Queen Margrethe II of Denmark had done in 2022, stripping her own grandchildren of titles to preserve clarity. William wasn't erasing family. He was protecting the brand. And as Buckingham Palace streamlined operations, Even critics began to admit the future king knew exactly what he was doing. But while William's reforms were reshaping the monarchy internally, tension was growing at the top. King Charles III had always been more lenient, more willing to preserve family unity at all costs. And now, behind closed doors, father and son were drifting apart. The next chapter wasn't about titles or branding, it was about legacy. And when Charles confronted William about the aggressive reforms, what followed was a private conversation that revealed two entirely different visions for the crown's future. William versus Charles. In August 2024, one of the most tension-filled meetings in recent royal memory unfolded behind the doors of Buckingham Palace. Only two men were in the room: King Charles III and Prince William. For months, Charles had quietly tolerated William's reforms, signing documents with hesitation but without resistance. But now, the new Royal Status Directive had crossed a line. Stripping HRH titles, restricting royal privileges, and forcing family members into measurable work hours was a step Charles feared would destroy what little family unity remained. He wanted healing. William wanted structure. Charles began the conversation softly but firmly. He argued that the monarchy was not a corporation. It was a family. For 4 years, he had worked to mend the rift with Harry since their January 2020 departure. He believed relationships could be saved, that public forgiveness would eventually follow. But William countered sharply. For him, the crown came before comfort. The monarchy had been dragged through scandal, media wars, and confusion. William's words were chilling in their clarity. Times have changed. We can't lead the way you did, or the way she did. She, of course, was Queen Elizabeth II, a reminder of the firm boundary she maintained for 70 years. Charles pushed back again, warning that William's approach could alienate the public. But William had numbers on his side. Polls from early 2024 showed that 68% of British citizens wanted a slimmed-down monarchy. Charles fell silent. In the quiet tension, it became clear. This wasn't a clash of personalities. It was a clash of generations. William wasn't trying to be the future king. He was already acting like one. And Charles, with every passing day, felt the reins slipping from his hands. In the end, Charles reluctantly approved the final documents. Insiders later said his signature looked heavy, as if he knew that with this decision, William's reign had effectively begun. Their relationship remained intact, publicly warm, but privately strained. A father who believed in unity, a son who believed in discipline. Two kings, two visions, one crown. But William's reforms weren't crafted in a vacuum. Long before the world learned about the HRH removals, he had been quietly assembling a team, the kind of team no royal had ever brought together. International constitutional scholars, Nordic royal advisors, European legal historians. Their mission was radical: modernize the monarchy using the same strategies that saved other European crowns from collapse. And as this team worked behind the scenes, the blueprint they created would become the backbone of the biggest royal restructuring in nearly 100 years. The Secret Royal Task Force. In early 2024, while Meghan and Harry were expanding their media ventures in California, William was conducting meetings that no one outside a tiny circle even knew existed. These meetings took place in private royal estates, secure government offices, and encrypted virtual calls. The participants? A hand-picked group of 9 experts from across Denmark, Sweden, Norway, and Germany. These weren't political consultants, they were monarchy engineers. Their goal was simple but monumental: redesign the British monarchy for survival in the next 100 years. The inspiration came from a bold move in 2022, when Queen Margrethe II of Denmark stripped her own grandchildren of their royal titles to protect the monarchy's structure. William studied the case in detail. He requested transcripts, internal memos, and constitutional studies from the Danish government. What he learned became the cornerstone of his reform. The message was clear: too many royals dilute the institution. A monarchy must remain exclusive to remain respected. Over 9 months, the secret task force drafted a comprehensive document known internally as the Royal Modernization Blueprint. It outlined everything from financial accountability to the limits on commercial activity to strict requirements for public service hours. The blueprint argued that modern royals needed clearer roles, measurable impact, and boundaries that prevented the exploitation of royal branding. William read every version of the report, not once, but multiple times. He wasn't just approving it, he was shaping it. By the time the HRH directive rolled out in July 2024, every detail had been pre-calculated, every risk examined, every loophole sealed. This was not an impulsive crackdown on Meghan. This was the execution of a long-term strategy designed to secure the future of George, Charlotte, and Louis. William wasn't fighting a family war. He was building the monarchy he believed his children deserved. A monarchy that could survive the digital age, political scrutiny, and celebrity culture. But while the palace was strengthening internally, the cracks were spreading across the Atlantic. In Montecito, the consequences of William's reforms were hitting Meghan harder than anyone expected. Once the HRH prefix was removed and her trademark attempt failed, the foundation of her global influence began to shift. Suddenly, the prestige that once guaranteed million-dollar deals was fading. And inside the boardrooms of Hollywood, the first signs of collapse were starting to show. Meghan's empire starts to crumble. By October 2024, the impact of William's reforms was no longer theoretical. It was financial. A senior executive from a major streaming platform confirmed privately that Meghan's $100 million Netflix deal was undergoing strategic review. Her podcast, once topping charts in 2022, saw a sharp decline in engagement. Public speaking agencies quietly removed HRH from promotional materials, replacing it with former Duchess, a title that lacked the glamour clients once paid for. Brand partnerships began pulling back. One luxury skincare company paused negotiations after internal researchers found a 37% drop in Meghan's brand influence following the HRH removal. Event invitations slowed dramatically. Meghan's value in elite circles was diminishing, and not because she lacked talent, but because she lacked royalty. The palace had removed the shine, and Hollywood noticed. Without the royal aura, Meghan was no longer a global symbol. She was a celebrity. And celebrities are replaceable. Her team scrambled. 3 different rebranding strategies were pitched between October and December 2024. One focused on female empowerment, another on humanitarian leadership, and another on American Duchess identity. None gained traction. Journalists and PR experts all agreed on the same point. Her brand had always been built on access to the royal world. And now, that world had closed its gates. But the most devastating blow came from the philanthropic sector. Donations to Archewell were reported to be down 42% by the end of the year. Organizations began to distance themselves quietly. Without HRH status, partnering with Meghan came with more risks than rewards. Her influence wasn't gone, but it was fading fast. And in that fading light, one truth became painfully clear. William's strategy had worked. But William wasn't celebrating, because for him, none of this was about punishing Meghan. It was about strengthening the crown itself, and the reforms that had shaken Hollywood were just the beginning. What came next redefined how future kings and queens would rule, and revealed the real purpose behind William's shocking moves. The next chapter wasn't about Meghan's downfall, it was about the rise of a new monarchy, shaped by a future king who wasn't waiting for the throne. Titles have meaning again. By November 2024, the Royal Status Clarification Directive was in full force, and the changes inside the monarchy were undeniable. Gone were the blurred lines and unspoken exceptions. Every royal, from frontline figures to distant cousins, was now under a singular rulebook. Titles could no longer be worn as personal accessories. They had become official roles with measurable responsibility. William's message was being enforced. If you don't serve the crown, you don't represent it. One of the most dramatic outcomes came from within the extended royal family. Princess Beatrice, Princess Eugenie, and even Lady Louise Windsor, often seen as fringe figures, were informed of their new status. Those who did not meet the 200-hour-per-year duty threshold would no longer be introduced with royal styling at public or state functions. Behind the scenes, some relatives were stunned, while others admitted it was long overdue. William's reform wasn't personal. It was institutional. More striking was the consistency of enforcement. Royal events in December 2024 displayed updated programs. Names were corrected. Seating charts were revised. Official merchandise no longer included unqualified royals. Biographers, media outlets, and even BBC royal correspondent Sarah Montague were briefed on the protocol shift. For the first time in decades, the monarchy had a system, one that aligned with the public's demand for transparency and relevance. The public responded favorably. A YouGov poll in late November showed that 73% of UK citizens supported William's structural changes. Young Britons, ages 18 to 35, were particularly pleased with the modernization, calling it long overdue. William wasn't just cleaning up the royal house, he was restoring its credibility. Titles were no longer birthrights. They were job descriptions. But even as Britain's monarchy was being reshaped, one person's legacy loomed large in the background: Princess Diana. Her life, her suffering, her warnings about power abuse within the palace echoed through every move William made. To understand why William acted with such precision, one must revisit his memories of his mother's battle with the system. And in that story, the public began to see that this was never just about policy. It was personal, and it was about legacy. Diana's shadow. In interviews over the years, Prince William had rarely spoken about 1997, the year his mother died. But those close to him know that August 31st changed everything. He watched his mother fight for dignity in a system that tried to silence her. He saw how titles were used as weapons, and how silence became the royal family's defense. These memories didn't fade. They fueled William's reform decades later. William viewed Meghan's exploitation of the Duchess title through a painful lens, one that mirrored the manipulation his mother suffered in her final years. The Oprah interview in 2021, the Netflix series, and media spectacle in 2022 and 2023 all echoed Diana's public unraveling. But this time, William wasn't a child. He was a prince, and he had power. His structural reform was not just an act of monarchy preservation. It was an act of protection for future generations, including George, Charlotte, and Louis. Diana's voice returned in headlines. Clips from her 1995 Panorama interview were replayed across media platforms. Her infamous quote, "There were three of us in this marriage," became a rallying cry for royal reform advocates. Commentators drew direct lines between Diana's battles and Meghan's ambitions. But there was a key difference. Diana never weaponized her title for profit. Meghan did, and that distinction became William's moral compass. Even now, as the reform shook the very halls Diana once walked through, William remained composed. He never publicly referenced his mother during the rollout, but insiders said her presence was felt in every decision. This wasn't about revenge. It was about honoring a woman who tried to modernize the monarchy and ensuring her grandchildren wouldn't fight the same wars. Diana's legacy made the reforms emotional, but the next phase made them historical. With the framework fully in place and the world watching, William took the final step to cement his doctrine. He wasn't just a prince reacting to chaos. He became a royal architect, creating the monarchy's future before ever wearing the crown. The last act was no longer about titles or punishment. It was about redefining what it meant to be royal in the 21st century. The final move. By December 2024, Prince William's vision for a new monarchy had reached its final phase. He ordered the release of a new public-facing document, the Crown Compact. At just 11 pages, it outlined the structure, responsibilities, and values of the modern British royal family. Every royal, active or not, received a personalized version. This was no longer tradition handed down silently. It was leadership by design. The compact laid out firm rules: no commercial use of titles without royal approval, minimum service hours to retain privileges, immediate loss of styling upon stepping back from duty. The document even included a clause mandating 5-year reviews of active royal status, a direct nod to modern employment standards. Royalty was becoming professionalized. The document also included ethical codes, financial transparency commitments, and charitable benchmarks. William wasn't simply cleaning house. He was rebuilding the entire institution from brick to beam. Even internal palace staff had their roles redefined under the new system, emphasizing accountability and public value. Gone were the days of soft power through lineage. This was the Monarchy, 2025 edition. The compact's release was met with applause from constitutional scholars and even some former critics of the monarchy. The London Times, in a rare moment of praise, wrote, "William has done what no royal since George VI dared attempt, a full recalibration of the monarchy's role in public life." As younger royals began adjusting to the new expectations, one thing was clear: the future crown would rest on earned merit, not birthright alone. And with that, William's quiet revolution was complete. But while the palace stood stronger, the echoes from across the Atlantic told a different story. Meghan Markle, once the media's darling duchess, was now navigating a world without her most powerful asset. As the monarchy rose, her empire cracked. And in that final contrast, the world saw the full impact of William's boldest move yet. What began as a policy had become a legacy, one that might define the next 100 years of royal rule. The crown restored. As 2025 dawned, Buckingham Palace was no longer the symbol of quiet tradition. It had become the center of royal innovation. Behind its ancient stone walls, a new system had taken root, one forged not by ceremony, but by necessity. Prince William had done what few royals dared. He had rewritten the rules before inheriting the throne. And in doing so, he had restored meaning to titles, honor to roles, and power to purpose. Meghan Markle's empire, by contrast, was now a shadow of its former self. Reports indicated a $40 million loss in projected revenue after major sponsors pulled out. Public speaking fees dropped by 60%. The once glowing headlines had been replaced with speculation. Can the Duchess brand survive? Without the title, the magic was gone. And without the monarchy behind her, Meghan was just another influencer, louder than most, but no longer royal. Meanwhile, Prince William remained silent. No public gloating, no press conferences, just work. He increased appearances with Catherine, launched initiatives for mental health, and prepared Prince George for a future under this newly defined monarchy. The public noticed. Approval ratings surged to 81%, with younger generations citing William as a leader of reform rather than just a prince. The question now isn't whether William succeeded, it's whether his structure will last. But one thing is undeniable. He has already changed the monarchy forever. What once seemed unmovable had shifted under the weight of a future king's vision. And for the first time in years, the crown feels not just symbolic, but strong. As Meghan's influence fades and her brand reels, William's message is louder than ever. Royal privilege must be earned, not sold. Behind the silence was a plan to protect the monarchy, not destroy family. But the damage to Meghan's empire is done. Her status, her title, her leverage, all gone. The crown has spoken, and for the first time in years, the royal family is drawing clear lines. The question now, can Meghan survive without the palace?